First, an overview of interviewing and qualitative research. It can be structured or unstructured. It is the most widely used. A well-conducted interview can capture thoughts and feelings in the participant's own language. It helps you understand experiences and events you cannot observe directly. It enables you to extend understandings beyond what you can directly observe or experience, typically economical in time and resources, and encourages probing when needed. The first two steps in designing a qualitative interview is first, step one, identifying your purpose. What is the nature of the information that you need to collect? Would some other data collection be more appropriate? And the purpose will then drive the questions, type of interviewing, and nature of participants. The second step is identifying your participants, identifying who will be able to give you the information that is needed for your research. Step 3 and 4 of designing a qualitative interview. Step 3, selecting the type of interview. Will it be individual or focus group? How structured will your protocol be? What will your mode be? Will you deliver the interview in person, by phone, or over the internet? And will your interview be structured or unstructured? You will then do step 4, develop your protocol, which is a set of questions or prompt. Typically 5 to 10 are included. The last two steps in designing a qualitative interview is selecting your setting. Your setting should enhance comfort level of the participants and should allow for adequate video and audio recording. Once you've completed this, you will do the final step, which is your pilot test. You will test your protocol with typically one or a few individuals and do revisions as needed. In conducting a qualitative interview, you will make sure that you identify whether it will be individual or focus group. Ensure that the interviewer is an engaged listener and has minimum involvement or talking to allow for openness of the interviewee, but will also do appropriate probing so that you can obtain thick descriptions. They should be trained and experienced in interviewing. They will establish rapport with the interviewee. They will be genuine. They will ask open-ended questions, and they will also either audio, video record, or both the session. So the strengths of using an interview method is it captures thoughts and feelings in the participant's own language. You are able to understand experiences and events you cannot observe directly. It enables you to extend understandings beyond what you can directly observe or experience. It is relatively economical in time and resources. It encourages probing when needed. You also have the ability to observe nonverbal responses and behaviors when the interview is completed in person. It also reduces the number of no answers or neutral responses and will typically have a higher rate of return. Interviewer effect is a weakness of this data collection method. You want to make sure you're accounting for bias of the interviewer. The research can be contaminated if the interviewer has knowledge of the facets of the study. There can be bias matching interviewer and interviewee as far as demographic variables and making sure that the interviewee is comfortable. Even things like the dress of the interviewer can make the interviewee uncomfortable. The way that the interviewer conducts the interview, even the way that they respond, the way that they record, if they are taking lots of notes, sometimes this can be a distraction for the interviewee, which is why typically they will record, but this can also sometimes with individuals cause unease when they know they're being recorded or videoed. The qualitative research study that I used was titled Understanding Depression Through a Coming Out Framework by Damien Ridge and Sue Zybland. And the article attempted to identify childhood experiences, confusion, depression, and stigma related to coming out and associated themes of depression in efforts to understand depression, coping with and resisting stigma to enable insight. in working with this population. Some of the strengths of using interview in this research was the interviewer was extensively trained and experienced. The setting they chose was in the interviewee's home. They audio and video recorded the sessions for later analysis. They chose an unstructured method using open-ended questions in the beginning to encourage storytelling. They conveyed warmth, and they had a topic list to use in the second portion of the interview to make sure important topics were discussed if they were not brought up prior to the second half of the interview. Some of the weaknesses were that they disclosed they could only interview people willing to talk about depression, so there might have been a part of the population that were not willing to discuss their depression or their experience of coming out. Most of the interviewees were doing well or considered in recovery that were interviewed. They did not have a large representation from ethnic minorities, and the interviewer was a co-author in the article, so there may have been interviewer bias.